Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the 10th Global Vibrant Gujarat Summit today in Ahmedabad in presence of key global CEOs and top India Inc. leaders.
Over the next 5 years, the Adani Group will invest over rupees 2 lakhs crore in Gujarat.
And Gautam Adani says that Adani Group surpassed 50,000 crore rupees promised in the last Vibrant Gujarat Summit and aims to invest over 2 lakh crores more in Gujarat over the next 5 years. Reliance has invested over $150 billion in the last 10 years in India, of which 1/3 is invested in Gujarat alone, says Reliance Chairman Mukesh Ambani at the Vibrant Gujarat Summit. Second day of choppy trade on the last street. Nifty flat below 21,550, Sensex below 71,350, broader markets in tandem. And another day of Sony-Z merger saga. Sony Group continuing talks on Z merger deal, reports Nikkei. Talks said to continue until January 20th. Hello and welcome. You're watching Large Trades. I am Agam Vakil, and in this show we talk about bulk deals, block deals and large deals. There aren't as many today, but we are certainly going to talk about a handful of volume brothers. But let's start by taking a look at the markets, which at the moment are looking at some amount of strength. In fact, we've seen the Bank Nifty move back towards the day's high, and the Nifty, of course, is also up and about, even though it's flattish at the moment, but we've seen a little bit of an advance coming through, play through. But of course, the Bank Nifty will be in focus considering the weekly options expiry. But besides that, in terms of the broader markets, well, we are keeping an eye on the mid-cap and the small-cap indices, which are, in fact, underperforming by just a small amount. Speaking of the broader markets, and that's where a lot of the activity is, and while we have seen a 0.3 of a percentage point decline as far as broader markets are concerned, well, we do have advances in the likes of delivery, which is up around 4.6%. Besides that, we have a good amount of an upmove in Mankind Pharma now, which has resumed an uptrend. That's up 4.4%. And Yes Bank is the other one, which is also advancing by around 4%. Z Entertainment is the interesting one, since we do have a word coming in from the Sony Group suggesting that talks, in fact, are on. And that's the reason why we have seen a little bit of strength resume in Z Entertainment, potentially shorts being covered in the futures and options space as well. And on the losing end, we have Trident, which is a clear case of profit taking. Trident is down 5.5% right now, but do remember it's seen a tremendous run over the past few days. And besides Trident, we're also keeping an eye on a whole host of other counters like Sona BLW, that's down 3.7%, and IGL, that's Indraprastha Gas, which is also down around 2.7%. Now, on the whole, the markets are looking, well, it's been more about stocks than indices in general. And even though there was expectation of volatility as far as the Bank Nifty is concerned, that hasn't come through yet. Of course, the final hour of trade, and as we move into it, we're going to have to wait and watch as to what really entails in here. But let's look at all the topics that we're going to cover as far as today's day is concerned. We don't have too many. Today, we're only largely going to talk about Puravankara. And, of course, we're also going to talk about NCC. AstraZeneca and NCC. So, well, we keep an eye on a whole host of these counters. Let's start off with AstraZeneca Pharma, which has hit an intraday high, and it is trading at significant volumes and also a big up move coming in. Let's get in Mahima to tell us a little more about what's in store for AstraZeneca. Mahima.
Yeah, good afternoon, Agam. So, as you rightly said, the stock is buzzing today. It has touched a life high of 6,379 and a single day intraday high of 12.85%. Now, if you talk about the overall stock performance, in 1 month, the stock has been up 31%, 6 months 66%, and 1 year around 83.7%. And at present, it's trading at volumes of triple its 20-day average. And if you talk about the recent updates that the company has come up with, it has recently launched a drug that cures breast cancer, and then it has received permission to import pharmaceutical formulations for drugs like Breztri Aerosphere, which treats pulmonary diseases, and Olaparib, which treats prostate cancer.
Right, Mahima, thank you so much for that. But just stay with us, and if you can also tell us about the financial performance for Astrazeneca.
So, in terms of financial performance, also the company has been doing pretty well. If we talk about the quarterly performance, its revenue has grown, its PAT has grown from what we can see on quarter ending March. It is currently its operating profit margin stands at 25%, which is again a big margin, and its net profit margin stands at 16.8%. Its PAT and revenue have also grown over the quarter, so the company's financials are on a positive note. Also, if we talk about the peer comparison, if you take the peers and check the PE, AstraZeneca, it is trading at a high PE of 157 versus its peers like Pfizer, Sanofi, which are trading at 32, 31 PE. And also overall pharma, if you see, we had an IIFL report on pharma which says that it suggests that price pressure in the US pharma market may not be sustainable now for beyond a year now. And large one-off products could see earnings volatility in terms of medium term, and domestic pharma will continue to grow at 9 to 10%. So companies like AstraZeneca are definitely going to benefit out of this.
That's certainly an interesting chart when it comes to its valuations out there, and specifically with respect to AstraZeneca. Mahima, thank you so much for getting us those updates. A lot of insights coming through as well when it comes to this particular pharmaceutical company. It's a competitive space, but for now, it does seem like it is at an advantage, considering one of the drugs that could potentially lead to a lot more in terms of revenue as well as perhaps the bottom line. But moving on, we also have NCC in focus. Remember, NCC has been one of those stocks which has seen a huge up move over the course of the last 12 months. And it has been a lot of HNI's favorite as well. In fact, we do have some marquee names which are already invested in the company. But I'm going to say no more and get in Anushi to talk to us about NCC. Anushi, what do you have for us?
Right. So now coming to NCC, it has marked in the volume buzzer today with its volume buzzing at about 6 times its 30-day average and marking an intraday high of about 7%. Now there are no fundamental factors driving this, but let's just look at the overall fundamentals, especially on the order side, how the business is faring. So the company has achieved its 80% of its FY24 guidance in H1 FY24 itself. So the order guidance was about 26,000 crore, of which the company has accomplished about 21,000 crore. And it has further mentioned that it expects to add projects in smart metering, tunnel, high speed rail, and other orders in the second half of the year. So with this, if we just keep the first half aside, if you look at the overall recent order wins, that also stands at about 4,700 crore. So the company is very close to achieving its target in the 9-month period itself. So that is on the order book aspect. Now coming to the Q2 FY24 performance, the company did report a 39% revenue growth, but its EBITDA margins and net profits took a beating here, with the margins falling at about 6% compared to 9% it had reported earlier, and the net profit being down about 37%. So that is all the order book and the profit picture of the business.
Right. But Anushi, the shareholding itself also throws up an interesting picture for us. Can you take us through that?
Right. So the company just updated its December 23 shareholding. So I'll just pull out a couple of names here which stand of interest. So there is ICICI Prudential Large and Mid Cap Fund, which holds about 4% stake in the company. We also have Bandhan Sterling Value Fund, which holds about 2%. But the other big name over here is Rekha Rakesh Junjunwala, holding about 13% stake. So that is on the key shareholders of the company. Overall, just to end it on the the stock performance, the company has reported about 104% growth, as you said earlier, in the 1 year period itself. So that was on NCC for today.
Okay, that's another good company to keep an eye and keep it on your radar. But Anushi, thank you so much for getting us those updates and insights into NCC. On that note, it's time for a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Ahead of the December quarter earnings, we spoke to Nirav Seth, the CEO at Institutional Equities at Emkay Global, about his reading of provisional numbers of India Inc. Listen in.
I think if you look at the first half, the earnings for the large cap is up close to about 30%. If I look at the mid caps in aggregate, they are up about 18-19%, and small caps are also closing the region of about 18 to 20%. If you look at a longer time frame, post-pandemic, the earnings are up more than 100%. So this is a very, very powerful journey of earnings, and we are nowhere near the peak of profit to GDP ratios. I'm fairly optimistic. I think that we can look to a mid-teen earnings growth rate in India Inc. For a longish period of time. I have never seen such a setup at macro levels in terms of your CAD, in terms of inflation outlook, in terms of the business confidence index, and what we are seeing in terms of infra build out. So, fairly optimistic.
Nirav, I want to start by one space that's not been too optimistic, at least in terms of business updates, and that was the rural economy. Do you think that's gaining momentum? Because early signs not yet showing substantial recovery.
So you're right. So if you look at the rural wages, the real rural wages, they've lagged. They are just close to about nil. They're just keeping up the pace with the inflation and all. But if you look at the anecdotal evidence, so if you look at two-wheelers, for example, they have come back very smartly and understand that large part of that demand is happening coming from the rural. You obviously had some amount of mix-up that has happened because of the pandemic and the reverse migration that you've seen in the rural area. I suspect that the momentum that you've seen in the economy is so strong that is going to lift even rural economy. As a matter of fact, the theme going forward, I would like to believe, will essentially hinge around two things. A, it will hinge around the fact that you'll have very, very strong corporate capex cycle that will pick up very soon. I'm talking about 1 or 2 quarters down the line. And secondly, we will see a more even balance between urban and rural consumption. As a matter of fact, I think there was an article yesterday or research paper yesterday by the research department of SBI, and they have got access to large amount of data points, which sort of debunks the myth about a K-shaped recovery. I tend to believe in it, but I don't have too much of evidence outside what we see anecdotally.
Right, Nirav, hi, Tamanna here. Great to speak with you on India Market Open. And I just wanted your take ahead of Q3. I mean, that's the big trigger right now, all things being equal. We know Indian economy on an upward trajectory, relatively looking well, strength, etc., etc. But the question is, how companies are going to deliver on everything they promised. A lot of sectors saw management come and tell us that H2 is going to be better and Q3 is going to be, much better and fabulous. What are the sectors and companies that you have your eye on, Nirav?
So I think what stands out very clearly as far as the delta, if you look at the delta, then you are going to see a significant amount of delta that happens in the cement sector. And a lot of this is base comparisons and the fact that you've seen a price correction in energy and coal and stuff like that. So the commodity basket as a whole will obviously be favorable to the importers of commodities. I believe that the earnings blowout in banks will continue. I think there are a lot of misconceptions around the impact on the NIMs because of the rate cut cycle, or people are unduly worried about the pace of deposit growth rate. Will take it forward if time permits. Banks will stand out, cements will stand out. So outside commodities and outside consumer companies, which are largely rural facing, I would expect that we'll have a decent amount of earnings growth that happening.
In terms of sectors, Nirav, IT, a mixed sort of an outlook. The outlook is gloomy, but the street seems to be to think that there is an upside there. And you spoke briefly about banks, but just a little more detail on the financial space and what looks promising there.
So I'll tell you, if I come to software, I agree that we are looking at a subdued quarter and maybe even a subdued Q4. It doesn't matter because I've always believed, and I've been vocal about this, is that you need to be slightly more macro conscious about when you take calls on the software sector.
Right. The vibrant Gujarat Global Summit has been in the focus throughout the day. And, of course, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while addressing the summit, said that he aims to make India a developed nation in the next 25 years.
निकट भूतकाल में भारत की आजादी के 75 साल पूरे हुए और अब भारत अगले 25 वर्षों के लक्ष्य पर काम कर रहा है। जब भारत अपनी आजादी के 100 वर्ष मनाएगा, तब तक हमने भारत को विकसित बनाने का लक्ष्य रखा है और इसलिए ये 25 साल का कार्यकाल भारत का अमृतकाल है।
And that was the Prime Minister from the summit where 34 partner companies and delegates from over 130 countries were currently present. A slew of deals pertaining to the economic development have been signed between the nations with added impetus on sustainability. To wrap all that action for us, we have Janani, who's joining us to give us the top key takeaways. Janani.
There are a couple of takeaways now that you mention it. In fact, a lot of takeaways coming from global leaders here, the business leaders that have already spoken today as part of the inaugural session. We also have the Prime Minister speak as part of the inaugural session. Now, let me recap that for you in a snapshot. First, of course, we have big investment plans being laid on the ground here in Gujarat. First, of course, is Suzuki Motors, which began by saying they would be rolling out their first battery EV later this year from Gujarat, and it will also be exported to European shores from India. So this is, of course, a very big move. They're also going to follow this up with a 3,200 crore investment towards a fourth production line in the state. They're also talking about larger plans for a 35,000 crore investment with this state. Of course, this will be for a second plant that will be here in Gujarat. Now, I'm also picking up from Micron and Simtech, which have announced a co-location investment deal. Now, this was announced already in June to us, a little before in the last year. But what we are getting to hear is that now this will catalyze the semiconductor ecosystem, and there will be more to come from this, particular plan. We also had Gautam Adani, chairman of Adani Group, speak here. He spoke about plans for a 2 lakh crore investment in the next 5 years. This is big, considering one of the major plans is, of course, for a 30 gigawatt, energy plant, a renewable energy plant that is going to be here in Kutch. He was talking about how this is the world's largest, renewable energy plant that will be visible from space, which of course is a big update for the jobs and the investment that will happen on the ground here. Ambani also, followed up with announcements in green energy. He was speaking about how the company will be bearing half of Gujarat's energy needs by 2030. This is a big announcement coming in from the soon-to-be Dhirubhai Ambani Green Energy Complex that's being built underway. Also, a carbon fiber facility in Hazira was one of the new material-related facilities that is being built here on the ground. So that, of course, is a very exciting news for the local employment generation here.
And that's all the time we have today. But before we wrap, playing a decisive role in the realization of the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Adani Group has unveiled first made in India medium altitude long endurance UAV in Hyderabad today.
welcome to India Market Close. Very similar trading day as to what we've seen over the last 2 days. The texture of trade is the same. Intraday charts look exactly the same. Markets open at a high, consolidate for most part of the day, and finally towards the last hour of trade start selling out. Well, today is no different. The Sensex and the Nifty both in negative territory. Nifty, of course, will be respecting or trying to defend the 21,500 mark. 21,522 is what we have. The Sensex also trading muted ahead of the earnings season that kicks off with Infosys and TCS tomorrow. Well, that's Bank Nifty. This was, of course, the one to be blamed for the weakness that we'd seen on the street over the last 2 days. This afternoon, though, Bank Nifty trading flat to slightly positive. We still wouldn't get ahead of ourselves and say that it's actually providing support to the benchmark. But for now, Bank Nifty not looking as bad in the index, trading marginally higher in today's trade. Well, broader markets moving in line with the benchmark. Mid cap is down marginally. Small cap index trades flat as well. So you've got not really